Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. And I think the third week, my calendar's not on the wall because I was getting our house painted, so I taken it out. But I'm pretty sure this is the third week of January. Let me check. What is Apple? What is the freaking music app one? Okay, yes, it is the third week of January. Everything has to update as soon as you open it. What is going on? Yeah, on my computer be doing whatever it wants. But anyway, we're back in the corner again, mainly because my tripod was here and it just made it convenient. So, enough rambling. Today I wanted to talk about a man known as the architect of rock and roll. His name is Little Richard. And the reason why is because I saw a clip of him calling himself the architect of rock and roll. I think it was at the Grammys, and that made me interested, like, about his life and about his music, things like that. So, yeah, we're going to talk about it now. So, what was I going to say? Oh, so this is a mixture of Wikipedia and, like, I think it was called Britannica News article. So, but I'm going to try not to read everything word for word because it's a lot. And I will say there is also a lot I cut out. So, Little Richard had a very eventful life, a very eventful career, a very long career. And he had, ups and downs like every artist has. But, of course, in the early years of rock and roll, he was very scandalous. You know what I mean? Okay, so he was born Richard Wayne Pennyman. I hope I said that right. Pennyman. He was born December 5th, 1932, and he passed away actually 2 years ago on May 9th, 2020, which we'll get into his death. But of course, it's going to be last. He was an American singer and songwriter, musician. He was hugely influential in popular music and culture for 7 decades. Like I said, he's described as the architect of rock and roll. His most celebrated works were from the mid-1950s. He was charismatic showman. He had dynamic music characterized by phonetic piano playing, pounding backbeat, and raspy shouted vocals laid the foundation for rock and roll. And, his most famous song was 1955, Tutti Frutti, which I'm sure I don't know if everybody's heard it, but it's pretty popular. Even now, you can still hear it like in different places. It became an instant hit and it crossed over to the pop charts, both in the United States and the United Kingdom. And then his next hit song was Long Tall Sally. 1956, it hit number 1 on the Billboard Rhythm and Blues selling chart, so that was big for him. And then he had a rapid succession of 15 more hits in less than 3 years, so that's incredible. Because of his performances, they helped have like integrated audiences, because back then, there was segregation, but because of his music, brought people together. Now what happened after that? Okay, in 1962, after a 5-year period in which Richard abandoned rock and roll, he became a born-again Christian. A contemporary named Don Arden persuaded him to tour Europe, and during this time, the Beatles had opened for Richard, and he had showed him like his signature style and how he sang, so they could sing it. I guess he does have a few gospel songs, so I'm assuming, because I cut out some parts, that he sang his gospel songs on that tour, and then they sang his other songs for him. They had Paul McCartney be the lead singer when he would sing Little Richard songs, which I'm not that big a fan of the Beatles. I haven't heard a full album by them. Maybe I'm missing out. maybe. But at least they did give Little Richard the credit. They said that he was like one of their influences. So they gave him his flowers. So I will say that. He's been honored by many institutions. He was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of his first group of inductees in 1986. So that's great. He was inducted in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He was the recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Recording Academy and the Rhythm and Blues Foundation. Tutti Frutti was included in the National Recording Registry of Library of Congress in 2010. It was said that his unique vocalizing over the irresistible beat announced a new era in music. So it's kind of an overview. We're going to get a little detailed now. His early life. He was born in Macon, Georgia, as like I said, on December 5th, 1932. He was the third of 12 children of Leva Mae and Charles Bud Pennyman. In his childhood, his nickname was Little Richard by his family because of the small and skinny frame. He was a mischievous child who pulled pranks on neighbors and began singing in church and taking piano lessons at a young age. His family was very religious, so that's where he got his start. Some of them became like ministers. He enjoyed the Pentecostal church the most because of the charismatic worship and live music. He was gifted with a loud singing voice. He recalled he was always changing the keys upwards, and that once stopped from singing for church for screaming and hollering so loud. He earned the nickname Warhawk. So, some churches, you can cut up, and the other ones are like, relax. So, I get why they were like, you doing a lot. His initial music influences were gospel singers, brother Joe May, sister Rosetta Tharpe, who I have a whole video on. If you haven't seen it, you should go look at it. I talk about all about her life and her music and how she's the godmother of rock and roll. Malaya Jackson and Marion Williams. Or is it Mahalia? I'm sorry, girl. I know she's legendary. I want to research on her too. So Brother Joe May was a singing evangelist known as the Thunderbolt of the Midwest because of his phenomenal range of vocal power inspired Richard to become a preacher. So that's what he wanted to do at first, was become a preacher. He credited the Clara Ward singers for one of his distinct hollers. So he got one of his hollers from there. He eventually learned to play the alto sax, and he joined his school's band in 5th grade. While in high school, he got a part-time job at Macon City Auditorium for local secular and gospel concert promoter Clint Brantley. And he sold Coca-Cola to the crowd during the concert. And one of the stars' performances, such as Cab Calloway, Lucky Millinder, and his favorite singer, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. So we're going to get into the beginning of his musical career in 1947. So in October 1947, Sister Rosetta Tharpe heard him singing at 14 years old. He was singing her songs before a performance, so she invited him to open her show. And after the show, Tharpe paid him and inspiring him to become a professional performer. So that's when he decided he wanted to become a professional performer. He influenced his piano style off of Ike Turner's piano intro in Rocket 88. He began to perform in Dr. Nubilio's traveling show. He was inspired to wear turbans and capes in his career by Nubilio. So, Little Richard had a very unique style. I'm thinking this is Nubello. He also carried a black stick and exhibited something called the Devil's Child, a dried up body of a baby with claw feet and horns on its head. I think that's what Nubello wore. I don't think that's what Little Richard wore, but Nubello told Richard he was going to be famous, but that he would have to go to where the grass is greener. So I'm guessing to white audiences. So he recorded 3 takes of Tutti Frutti in September 1955. It was released as a single that next month in November, and it became an instant hit. It reached number 2 on the Billboard magazine's Rhythm and Blues best-selling chart, and it crossed over the pop charts in the United States and in the UK, and reached number 21 on the top 100 Billboard in America and 29 on the British singles chart, eventually selling 1 million copies. So, his next single, like I said, I talked about that one. And then his next single, Long Tall Sally, also sold 1 million copies. And then following the success, he made his own band. And then, he went on package tours with the band. And then Little Richard claims that women would be throwing their underwear at him when he was playing at the Baltimore's Royal Theater in 1956. And he claims this is the first time this ever happened to any artist. Of course, we can't really verify that. There's never been a story like that before. We don't know. And then they had to keep stopping the show because people kept trying to climb on the stage. Which I mean, if you see your favorite artist, maybe you'll be a little happy. But I don't know about climbing on the stage. That's a lot. But at the peak of his fame, he had became a born-again Christian, and he said that rock and roll was the devil's work, so he abandoned music, and then he went to Bible college and became a traveling preacher. But he got some renewed attention. So in a few years, I guess at some point in that year, because I might have cut out some stuff. But he tried his hand at stardom again. A new song was called Bama Lama Bama Lou. It was fun and evoked the vitality of his heyday, but the young people weren't really into it. But in that time, in the early 1970s, he did have three albums. The Real Thing, Rock and Roll, The King of Rock and Roll, and Second Coming. But it lacked the hard rock and roll style of the time. But he still continued to do concerts and festivals until 2013, when he announced his retirement. And in his increasingly rare TV appearances, his madcap mannerisms, so threatening to parents in the 1950s, had seemingly become amusingly safe. So, how before, all these things were oh my gosh, the devil, the this, the that. And then now, as time goes on, it's oh, that's just a quirky thing. It's not as controversial, as it was at first. So, but yeah, he had a long, wonderful career, and they say self-proclaimed architect of rock and roll. I guess it's from the other site. It's not from Wikipedia, but I don't know if he gave himself that title, but. Yeah, he had a long and wonderful career. So we're going to get into his personal life now. He only had one wife, Ernestine Havern. He met at an evangelist rally in 1957. They began dating, and on a year later, in July 1959, they got married. They did have one adopted son, Danny Jones. I think it's from somebody who passed away at the church. They adopted the boy. And Little Richard and his son remained close, and his son was also sometimes his bodyguard, which I'm that's kind of a big responsibility. Okay, so there's some things I'm not going to get all the way into because it's a lot of detail. Like I say, he has a lot going on with his life. We're going to talk about his sexuality, though. In 1984, he did say that because he liked to play with girls as a child, and his way that he walked and he talked, he did have ridicule, as homosexual jokes and ridicule against him because of these. And his father was very abusive, and he did not accept his son's sexuality. Richard has said that it sounds like he's bisexual, because he said he has sex with both men and women, but I'm not going to include that because the one source that they had on Wikipedia said that another source said it, but nothing that Little Richard actually said. So I'm going to tell you what he actually said. And it's so sad. He said on the show in 1985 that his daddy kicked him out because he wanted 7 sons, and because Richard was gay, he said he spoiled it, which is just so sad. And he became openly, in the early 1950s, Richard became openly acquainted with an openly gay musician, Billy Wright, who helped establish Richard's look, advising him to use pancake makeup on his face and wear his hair in a long-haired pompadour style similar to his. And Richard really liked the makeup. He liked it because he said when he would go to the white clubs, he would wear it so that the white men weren't threatened. But then he said white women still liked him, so. And then also, I didn't mention this in the personal life, but he did date a white woman, so. I did cut that out, but yeah. But people still loved him. In 1982, he did, I think this is when he was a born again Christian. He denounced homosexuality. He said that he was not gay anymore. But then in 1984, once again, he did condemn homosexuality as unnatural and contagious, but he did say that he's omnisexual, which says that it's, when I looked up, it's pansexual. So, you know, I guess he was saying he's open to anything, but still denouncing it. That's kind of interesting. But in 1995, Richard told Penthouse magazine that he always knew he was gay, saying, "I was gay all my life. I've been gay all my life." And then he went back to denouncing homosexuality again in 2017 when he once again went back to Christianity. So he has a lot of ups and downs as far as, you know, his sexuality. There's also, I didn't include this because it was a lot, but there was like a lot for drug use on his Wikipedia, and one fact that stood out was that at one point he was spending $1,000 a day on like various drugs, and like that's crazy. But you know, addiction makes you do crazy things. So, but yeah, I'm assuming once he went back to Christianity the few times, I'm sure, you know, the drug use kind of curtailed. Although I did read one story when one of his friends, I think, was a drug dealer, and Little Richard owed him money, and he pulled a gun out of him, and so Little Richard was like, "Oh, I can't be doing this no more." So I think that also was like a catalyst for him to like stop using so many drugs too. Okay, so he died on May 9th, 2020, after 2 months of illness. He died at the age of 78 at his home in Tullahoma, Tennessee. It says it was related to bone cancer. So at the time he passed away with his brother, sister, and son. So that's nice. Everybody was there. So I also reviewed one of his albums, his first album. It's called Here's Little Richard. It was released on March 4th, 1957. It was his debut album, like I said. It was promoted as 6 of Little Richard's hits and 6 brand new songs of hit caliber. Y'all, I can't read. But it has an A side and a B side. So like the first 6 are the A side, and the second 6 are the B side. But when I looked, if I can talk, when I listened to it on Apple Music, it was the deluxe version. So the first CD was just 1 through 12, and then they had a bunch of like another part of the CD which was like just outtakes or different takes of him singing the songs. So I'm not going to review that part because it was just like, oh, this is the first take he did of Tutti Frutti, and then the second take, and the third take, and then there was like demos and things. So I was like, I'm just going to do the first CD because that's like the main thing, you know. But Apple Music did not have just the regular version. So, yeah. And it included top 40 hits, Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, Slippin' and Slidin', Rip It Up, and Jenny Jenny, the top 10 rhythm and blues best-selling hits, Ready Teddy, She's Got It, and Miss Ann. So I'm going to talk about my favorite songs. So I have 6 favorite songs, and the other 6 I was not really into. So Tutti Frutti, of course, is a very classic and fun song. His signature song. I always love it. It's just so interesting, and he's talking about all the different women he got going on. Also something I didn't mention, but it does go in detail in his Wikipedia. He was a voyeur. So, I mean, if that's something you're interested in reading about from him, yeah, it does go in detail about some of his voyeurism. So, I was like, it's kind of a lot, to include about him. So, but I'm just going to point that out. Speaking of all the different women and things, because I think one of his ex-girlfriends did have some stories in there. So, yeah, if you want to check that out. And then the other song I liked was Can't Believe You Wanna Leave. So basically it's like a breakup song, y'all. And it was very passionate. I really loved it. He seemed very desperate to keep his love, and he was like kind of wailing in the song, and I really liked that, like showing his emotion, showing he's really upset. So yeah, I really like that one. And then Ready Teddy, which was one of the hits, is very upbeat and fun. It makes me want to go to a sock hop and tear it up. LOL. It's very energetic and electric. I like, when it's more upbeat for him. And of course, Long Tall Sally. And I really like this one too. I love this one too. Once again, energetic and fun. And has some scandals in the song. So it says something about Uncle John is like cheating on Aunt Mary. And I'm like, ooh, got some tea in the song. So that was interesting. And especially at one point, I think Uncle John got caught in the song, so he jumps into some bushes. So that's very interesting to imagine. So I really like that. The way of, like, it have the storytelling and it gives good imagery. And then Jenny Jenny. I love the onomatopoeia he does on this song, which makes it seem like you're spinning around with Jenny. I don't know if it's really onomatopoeia or if it's something else, but it's like when he's saying spin, spin, or something. How does it go? I think he's saying something about her spinning, but the way he says it, it kind of makes you feel like you're spinning too, so I like that. He was ready to give Jenny all the jewelry she wanted, like, okay, Daddy Warbucks, LOL. But yeah, he was talking about giving her this diamonds and pearls and all these things. And I like that it's a lively tribute to his lover, and he seems ready to, give her his all, give her all the bucks, a buku bucks. And then the last song I really liked, that was my favorite, was She's Got It. I love that he's appreciating his lover, even though it sounds like a white woman. But to each their own, you know what? I've been with a white man. I can't even say that. So I've been down with the swirl. So I don't know if I can really critique, but hey. And I love the descriptions of her features and like how she's talented. I like that it's a unique take, describing, instead of just describing her appearance, also describing like what she likes to do and what she loves to, or what she's good at and what she loves to do. Because I think he mentions like she could sing, either she can sing, and then also how she dances well. I thought that was really interesting. My overall opinions, I really love half of the album more than the other half, and it's kind of like a mixture, because some of these are technically on the A side, some of these are technically on the B side, but I can understand that, like, why it's called a classic rock and roll album. I definitely give it that. It is. Again, I can see how Little Richard was like big in that era, because it's like really, like, I'm trying to think of the word. It's like really, like, when you're listening to it, it's like really funny. You're like, ooh, I wish I was there. I wish I was at that party. I wish I was at that concert. You know what I mean? Wherever they are, it just sounds fun. And I love his energy on the album. I did only write one slow song, which I Can't Believe You Want to Leave. But I could see that he was still passionate on that song. And those instrumentals on the slower songs were Not saying they have to be upbeat because they are slower songs, but it was kind of like too calm for me. Like I was trying to get up and dance. You know what I mean? And I did have a great time listening to the album overall. So I would give it 8 out of 10. If it had just a little more oomph for the slower songs, because they were kind of flat to me. I feel like it could have been perfect, but I definitely can see how he's the architect of rock and roll, and why like millions of people still love him, and he's a really great artist. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I never listened to an album by him. I've heard Tutti Frutti. I want to say there was some other song. I'm not trying to think of it. I know I've heard Tutti Frutti, but I feel like there was another song. Oh, Lucille. That's what it is. I definitely heard Lucille a lot, especially in retail. And I guess it depends on the DJ of the radio station, if they're black or not. And then I remember one time they were playing, like, I can't remember if it was Black History Month or if it was Black Music Month, but they had a really great playlist. And Lucille was on there and a bunch of other old, like, really good black songs. And I was like, they need to play this all the time. But anyway, so I was going to rewrite or actually follow the instructions for the poem style that I wrote last week, but I decided to do a different style because I kind of wanted like a storytelling style. Because so it's inspired by She's Got It, this poem, and I wrote it as a high bun. So it's like a paragraph with the haiku. That's the high bun. And I wanted to do like a storytelling element, and I felt like it would be better told in a high bun. So, I don't have to worry about the syllables and the structure. But I definitely got to redo that other style at some point because I ain't do it right. But at least I tried, Alright, so the poem is called Men Need Not Try. I was trying to make a play on like Need Not Apply. But I might change the title at some point. But we'll see. But here it goes. Her dark almond skin is so smooth, and her afro is the perfect circular shape. She's sweet, but don't cross her, 'cause she can turn sour if need be. She's shaped like a perfect pear, but it never stops her admirers. Her long legs seem to be endless as she burns them up when she hears her favorite song. She's intelligent and street smart too. She's the best of both worlds. She knows all the twists and turns men try to throw her way, but she knows how to contort her way out of their sweet nothings. She much rather dance with the women who look like her, and kiss them because she likes it. Just like Katy Perry, she wants a taste of all the women's chapsticks. She knows she deserves the best and wants a queen to rule with her. She's got what all of the boys want, but they will never get it but in their dreams. So yeah. So that's Little Richard's life and music. Like I said, there was a lot that I did not get to because it's just so much. And especially when I think he had maybe over 20 albums. So I don't know if it was 20. Let me double check. My music app just keeps. Let me see how many albums he had. But I know he had a lot. Wikipedia. But I know he had a lot going on. Let me see how many. Oh, he had 19. Oh, I think I was either looking at Chuck Berry or a different artist, but they had like 40 some. No, I think it was Prince, actually. He has like 43 albums. It's a lot of work. But yeah, 19 is still a lot, though. I mean, that's a lot for you to have throughout your life. But yeah, so there's a lot I didn't go through. But I definitely think you should look up Little Richard. He is a fun performer from what I have seen of him. Very flamboyant, very energetic. And I really like the album. Here's Little Richard. I really recommend it, and you can get like a sense of his style. Like I really think it was great. Um, if you look him up on like Apple Music or like just Google him, like this album and his second album is, I think it's just called Little Richard, which I think he has two albums called Little Richard actually, which is weird. Like how do you know which one's which? But I guess you got to put the year. But yeah, the second album that he ever made, Little Richard, I've heard is really good as well. So yeah, that's Little Richard in his life and career. Do you know anything about Little Richard? Do you like Little Richard? Will you look him up now? Since I've told you almost as much as I could without this video being like 40 minutes to an hour, because it's a lot. But yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments if you want. If you want to like the video, you should like the video. If you want to subscribe. If you want to follow me anywhere else, I have my @ name in the description. Like always, it's I am Kalicious, like delicious, but with a K. That's it. So yeah, I will see you all next week.